What is going on, Lucid fans? Welcome back to Financial Journey. Today I want to give you a good summary of what happened with Lucid, more specifically this big drop that did happen midday. At the end of the day as well, I want to also piggyback off of yesterday's video on which I talked on a lot of big transactions both on the secondary market and also the dark pool. So I want to give you a quick update in that regard. Before I get into any of that though, make sure you guys hit that thumbs up and subscribe. Always greatly appreciated. And with that, let's get right to it. So as of right now, there's been a lot of economic data that's been coming out. So today there was PCE, jobless claims, and in general though, I've been saying this week is the Super Bowl of economic events. There's a lot of big data points coming out this whole week that could hopefully propel us very much higher. Based on Powell's discussion in his speech yesterday, he gave a lot of optimism, basically saying that they're going to be doing a lot less interest rate hikes than anticipated in order to kind of boost the market in some cases, but they're going to be very cautiously watching inflation. So that's very positive in the grand scheme of things, but you do get PCE that does come in line with the forecast on a year-over-year basis. Month over month, it does go down. Keep in mind, PCE is exactly what the Feds do use and look at when they're going to be determining if potentially they're going to be raising rates. PCE and CPI are very similar, just CPI has a little bit more of a heavy-weighted energy component, which of course, I'm sure you guys are already aware, is very volatile. So again, that tends to skew the numbers a little bit, which is why the Feds use PCE. So the fact is, even though it potentially still did increase, the Feds have a lot of power, plain and simple. And there's a lot of big institutions now saying, when they're talking and being asked about the future, more specifically recently, I think it was a couple days ago, Morgan Stanley did say and talked about their future. And what they said is that they have a very glim or a kind of a gloomy viewpoint of the future, largely because of the Feds. And what they mean by that is, with them raising interest rates so much, there's going to be a little bit more of a domino effect that we have not even seen yet. It is going to be a little bit more of a domino effect that will kick in Q1, which will ultimately affect a lot of companies and their earnings. So we haven't even seen the repercussions of them raising interest rates as of right now. Supposedly based on them at least though. And a lot of institutions are also mimicking exactly the same kind of viewpoint that Morgan Stanley is saying, but they're all saying basically the same thing, that the Feds have a lot of ammunition in this day and age, and I think it's a little bit more worrisome. So this is where a lot of institutions maybe are just getting completely out, as you can tell based on this big sell-off that did happen. And coincidentally, on yesterday's video, I did bring up a lot of transactions that happened on the dark pool and also the secondary market. So this is all the transactions on the dark pool. As you can see, these are the ones from today. So pretty similar, as I normally always say, between 2 to around 10 million is considered good, very big orders, but generally that's the norm. But when it comes to it though, what happened yesterday, I'm just going to show you, there was a transaction, 150 million. Very, very big. Over and above that, there was the typical ones as well, but 99.8 million as well. And when it comes down to the dark pool, it's made for institutions. So there is no real bid ask and all that fun stuff. Nobody can really view that. But what you do see is the price that was tentatively agreed on or that they settled on. So again, a very good way to view that is what happened before and after. And so since both were generally higher than this $10 mark, it is fair to say that both of these transactions, so this 99.8 million and also this 150 million, were selling, or at least were prompted by sellers. Keep in mind though, for a transaction to happen, you need a buyer and a seller. So in general, that could be twisted to be a positive or a negative depending on how you see it. Clearly, a big institution did sell, but on the opposite side, someone bought. So it's one of those sticky scenarios that is good and bad. What does someone know? What does someone not know? We're kind of left in limbo, unfortunately, coming from a retail standpoint. But when it comes down to the secondary market, this is the exchange that you and I both trade on, typical retail investors. Normally, you do not see $1 million orders on the actual secondary market. Anywhere from around 1 to 3 million or 300 million, I should say, that's a norm for an institution to get in. You do not see these kind of big transactions. So as of today, though, there was still a continuation and piggyback from yesterday on the level of big institutions getting in. So as you can see right here, there was one 9.53 million. So definitely that was a very big deal today. At the beginning of the day as well, there was a 2.53. So those are abnormal. They stand out. They stick out easily. But what happened yesterday, there was a $26.9 million transaction that did happen on the secondary market. But the only difference between the secondary market and the dark pool is you can see what the bid and the ask was at the time. So the bid was technically $10.11, the ask $10.12. So what they actually purchased it for was $10.14. So someone really wanted to get in more and they just bought it straight up. So on the market, most likely as far as a market order. So again, that could be seen as a positive sign. Someone wanted 2.6 million shares. And I did cross-reference this in yesterday's video with shorts. It wasn't shorts closing out their position, making new positions or whatever it might be. It was legitimately institutions physically buying. So again, that could be seen as positive, negatives. Usually as retail investors, we are left very much in the dark. It is fair to say that you have to look at this. So going back to the dark pool, someone has to have had 15 million shares at least. So going here, looking at all the big players in Lucid, who has 15 million at least in shares? Well, looking here, it's either BlackRock, Vanguard, or the PIF. Based on the recent action of the PIF, they actually did buy more shares during the recent issuance. I believe it was 915 million. I could be wrong, so don't quote me on that. But regardless, they did buy. So I don't anticipate them being the seller in this. Possibly Vanguard or BlackRock were the culprits in as far as who sold. And again, that was 15 million shares there and also 9.9 million shares there. So once again, there's a lot of big things that happen behind the scenes when it comes down to these big institutions and strategic entities. There's lots of tax harvesting, and maybe behind the scenes, Vanguard and BlackRock are taking a little bit more severe losses, because at the beginning of the year, I do believe BlackRock did lose roughly about 17 billion, that's billion, just in the Q1. And that's more so from the Russia involvement and all that exposure. But still, goes to show a lot of these strategic entities can lose a lot of money. So possibly they might be moving some assets around, and as a consequence, Lucid got sold. Again, that's just my theory on potentially what might have happened. Again, we did fall tentatively a little bit, but we held a very good support. So once again, I know this doesn't seem like an optimistic viewpoint, but it goes to show at least that the $9.50 range has a very good support. So when it comes to it though, looking at stochastic, we are still very much oversold. So if we do have some good piece of news and maybe something does come in the next week or even the rest of the week, having good economic data points coming out, we could kind of kick in and jumpstart our behind the scenes, our boosters, or whatever you want to call it, and go up there because of a value rally. So like I said, stochastic, we are extremely oversold. Our size at 34 is a very low number. Retail investors were just out today. They maybe didn't want to invest, didn't want to buy. I'm not necessarily sure. But again, you can tell based on momentum number of retail investors. Looking as far as on the chart, it does show that generally speaking, we are holding some pretty good support. So around the $9.50 to $10 range is where we might be trading potentially in the short term until we do get either good economic data, good piece of news that does cause us to go up. And like I said, we are in a little bit more of a no man's land right now. So the next resistance point that we have to really watch for is that central Bollinger Band, which is at $11.50. But no matter what though, there's a ton of articles coming out all about Lucid. They're all generally saying the exact same thing, that Lucid is coming out with a new product, blah, 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 whatever it might be. At the end of the day, it goes to show that Lucid is a long-term investment, plain and simple. There's a lot of different wordings and kind of ways that they're being said, but generally if you take a step back and just really read it on how it's actually truly being said, it's just saying it's a long-term investment. So you need to really think about that and realize that at the end of the day, Lucid is going to have a lot of volatility, especially for those of you that did invest in Tesla early on. That is a whole different ballgame. When you're investing in a very speculative kind of scenario right now, and we are very speculative until we get our production down pat, until we get some actual demand, very big demand for our vehicles. So until we get that, we're going to be very volatile. So let me know your thoughts on all of that in the comments below. If you haven't already, hit that thumbs up and subscribe. Always greatly appreciated. If you do like my channel, want to support the growth, take a look at my memberships, link in the description below, or just hit the join button at the bottom of the screen. With that said, appreciate you guys watching. Let's all make a lot of money on Lucid.